Folks, I've got with me a very interesting lady of the of the blues, who is known as Caroline Cotto. As you can see, she's all spiffed up and fresh. Congratulations, by the way, for your 2024 Independent Blues Award.
Thank you so much. Very excited.
So, based on what I read, you recorded Lone Man over at the in the U.S. Sherman Oaks. It was a recording studio for, I think it was Gilby Clarke, from a former member of Guns N' Roses. So you wrote this song based on a conversation you had with someone who was dead set on hopefully reaching stardom at the age of 30 in music,
Yes.
or just moving down to New Orleans to play a loud guitar and drink himself to death.
Yes. Yeah.
So when did you actually sit down to write the song?
I wrote this song about over 2 years ago, and it was influenced by that conversation I had with someone, an old friend who they were older, they were in their 50s, and they said by the time, like, I thought that usually musicians, they have a deadline, they have a self-imposed deadline. They say I have to do this by this time or I don't feel successful. So for him at the time, if he didn't make it into the industry by 30, and he was living in California actually where the song was recorded, um, he would move to New Orleans and drink, play loud guitar, and it happened for him. So he was like warning me. He was giving me sage advice as an older musician, saying that that's about that, and that heavily inspired it by not having these limits as a musician and just enjoying the journey at every age and stage of your life. And so yeah, I'm inspired heavily by conversations or some words that strike me, and so that really struck me. So I just started writing the song based on that experience.
Okay. When you started writing the song, was it composed with the piano, or did you compose it entirely on your guitar?
I composed it on my guitar. I had the phrase "lone man" in my head. Usually there's a phrase that I couldn't get it out of my head, and so for weeks that was in my mind. And when I sat down with my guitar, I started playing chords, and it just worked out that way. And I'm open to the experience of songwriting. I don't dictate where it should go. I just follow the muse and the energy, and I write my songs on guitar. I start on guitar, or I have a lyric in mind first, and then it works out.
Okay. Now, when you went down to the U.S. at the Sherman Oaks recording studio, how long did it take to actually go from start to finish, to actually get the song down pat, and then to have it mastered by um, Gary Clark?
It was so I went to California in January this year,
Hmm.
and uh we spent I was Jim Phantom of the Stray Cats. He produced and he played drums on the track, and it took us a, a day and a day and a half or less
Hmm.
than. And it was very just organic, the experience. I've admired the Stray Cats for years, so I was very excited. And I had this I wasn't nervous, but I had this, when it's like before a gig, you have this anticipation, like I was very excited because this was a dream come true for me, and I love the Stray Cats. But I just always amazing. You look up to someone, and then you work with them and you connect with them, and they're a real person like you. And it was very, very just organic, the connection, and we completed it fairly quickly. We all love rockabilly music, rock and roll from the 50s. So I think that we just all brought our great passion for that time period into the song, and it worked well. So it was a very lovely experience.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to know when you started to actually start dabbling in the music, because you had a very interesting path.
Yeah.
You were inspired, based on what I read, you were inspired in poetry from Edgar Allan Poe, Annabel Lee, and then you decided to bring yourself from poetry to music. Um, so when was the first time that you actually started seriously looking at taking that path?
Well, music, I grew up in New York, and my father, he always played the Beatles around the house. So he would play in the car while he was driving us to school, like all the Beatles albums. So I was really educated in the Beatles. That's my favorite band. And so I grew up listening to 60s British music, and that's the sounds I always heard, sounds from the 60s. So I always felt connected to that time period, and I fell in love with the music immediately.
Mhm.
And so it's through that I started really just I love just doing like research, and I love when I'm passionate about something, I throw myself into it. And so I was like studying all the albums, the great albums from the 60s, and they were inspired by rock and roll from the 50s, like Elvis Presley, Carl Perkins, Jerry Lee Lewis, Roy Orbison. So I was just fascinated, and then I gravitated more towards that music and blues. And so I just fell in love with it, and I just became really obsessed, wonderfully obsessed with just Elvis Presley and the music that came out of Sun Studio. And I always felt connected to that area. So I was just 50 years like ago, like I just connected to the music from that time period. And I was like, I felt disconnected because children my age weren't listening to that music. So I had like this passion for like Elvis, but and then I grew up in the era where children were listening to like boy bands, and pop music was really popular in the 2000s. So I didn't really have anyone to connect with based on that. So I really kept it to myself and just
Mhm.
started studying those songs and playing along to them. And just became my great passion.
And thus, you were born the Rockabilly Queen of New Orleans. So, when you started doing this and discovering yourself, I know that you recorded two albums, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on, I'm just going to bring it up here. You started off with singles, A Mama to Cry to, and The Bayou Sun, where you took that single and made it into an album, which is available for people on Spotify and other streaming devices, or even merch directly from your website. It was released officially in October 20th, 2023, with 10 songs worth 41 minutes of pleasure.
Yeah.
Uh, you you were given Blues Awards for that as well. Congratulations, by the way. Um, Now, are you planning on doing a new album anytime soon? Because I feel that it's probably coming around the fringes with this particular release.
Yes, I'm always writing music, so I love to be organized, so I already have multiple albums already written.
Hmm.
So I definitely like out of those albums, I'm gravitating towards one in particular. So I have the album, the songs are written and arranged, and so I definitely next year will definitely record. And yes, so it's more songs of pleasure for everyone, for my blues angels, as I call my fans and supporters. And so yes, I'm always writing, so I definitely, yeah, it's new music is on the way.
Okay. Now, your relationship with Slim Jim Phantom, was it just a one-time thing, or are you guys actually going together when you're doing events or gigs?
Well, we recorded the song, and we discussed definitely future collaborations. I'm definitely open to that. So who knows? A lot of things are on the horizon.
So currently, when you're going about town and gigging, are you
Yeah.
just yourself single, or are you with other people?
I do solo and with a band. Recently, I played a festival, the Rock and Rouge Women's Festival in New Orleans, and I was with the full band. So yeah, I do solo and band performances.
But you've been quantified as being rockabilly punchy, powerful. So, uh, as a human being behind rockabilly-esque attitude, do you even have time for hobbies?
Oh, I'm always reading. I do. I make time. I'm definitely always reading, and I love to go to museums, and I love to walk. So I definitely make the time for things to do things I love that are outside of music.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, definitely. I'm always reading. I love to read. Um, Actually, today I went to a bookstore. This is funny, and I got a rockabilly book. That's the first thing I saw when I entered, and I was like, I have to get it. So I love bookstores and coffee shops. I love writing at cafes. So usually on the weekends, you can see me at your local cafe writing with my notebook. I always bring my notebook everywhere, and so I have time. I may or
Well, that's good. I mean, that means that you can practice, you can develop your skills, and especially develop the writing aspect because that
yes,
rockabilly without lyrics is kind of sad sometimes.
yeah.
So when did you actually start getting involved with in listening to the Stray Cats? Because I know that Slim Jim Phantom, for those that don't know, is a drummer from that particular band. But when did you discover them, and how long did you follow every single release that they did?
Well, I was a teenager when I first discovered the Stray Cats, and I was just immediately amazed. First of all, I feel rock and roll goes hand in hand with fashion. So just like the look, they had that look from like that in the 80s when that was going on. It was just so different from other music that was coming out, the rockabilly revival. And they love the same artists I love: Elvis Presley, Gene Vincent, Eddie Cochran. So I felt as a young girl growing up in New York, and they grew up in Massapequa, Long Island. So I was
Mhm.
just amazed. Like I looked up to them because they too grew up in New York and they just changed the world with their music. So I thought I could do that too because we love the same music. I can make a change with my own songs and my own voice like they did. So I just fell in love with their music and just what they did for music history. Really, I think they're a very important band.
Well, I got myself. I got involved in listening to rockabilly after I discovered Brian Setzer and the Stray Cats. And then I started dabbling in listening to some of the old bands that actually came out of Sun Records, including as Elvis, which in the first recordings he was more rockabilly than anything else. And then uh, a few uh, a few artists that came out from the late 50s, 60s that were known as being the first rockabilly pioneers, especially one which I can't recall. She was the rockabilly queen of her age. But
Uh, of the fifth Wanda Jackson from the 50s, or
there you go.
yes, I know I'm the rock. I know.
So I just can't wait to see your next full album because I've been listening to Bayou Sun and it's actually pretty interesting in regards to the lyrics.
Oh,
Hopefully, we'll have you with a full ensemble band.
yeah,
Now, granted, I'm in Canada and you're in the States. Are you in New Orleans currently, or are you living in New York?
New Orleans.
No.
Thank you. I love Canada. You have supported me so much. All the radio, the fans out there. So I'm grateful for Canada. So I'm excited to play there one day, definitely.
There's many festivals that would probably open up, and I hope that one of these days you actually have a wonderful time. Do you have plans for this coming summer in regards? Well, coming summer, we're already at the end of summer, so
I,
coming winter, coming spring in the States, are you planning on doing a tour? Are you just going to gig around town?
I'm definitely planning to do gigs in town and out of town, definitely. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. And the last question I'd have would be, it's going to be a weird one, but it's a unique one. What's your favorite food dish?
Oh, okay. Mm. I come from a Puerto Rican background, so I love Puerto Rican food, and I definitely miss it because in New Orleans they don't have Puerto Rican restaurants or food. So I love just like um, rice, chicken, beans, and also I'm a big fan of Italian food. So pasta. I love pasta.
Okay. Well, that's also wonderful. So it's always a good choice. You can't go wrong with pasta.
Yeah, et tu parles français, oui?
Oui, c'est vrai, j'ai oublié. Voyons, tu es francophone jusqu'à un certain degré, selon ce que je me dis. You're very fluent in French.
Oui, 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 j'adore le français. J'ai étudié à l'université le
Ouais.
français. J'ai habité à Paris pour un an. Et
Ah
j'adore la
oui?
française. Oui, j'adore Paris, le sud de France, oui. Et
Mais,
à Montréal, oui, bien sûr, tous les pays francophones.
ah oui, OK. Fait que comme ça, avez-vous appris le français seulement à partir de Paris ou avant?
Avant, à l'école.
OK. Puis
Oui,
avec Paris, ça vous a donné une grande chance de pouvoir pratiquer le français.
oui j'adore, oui.
Avez-vous pensé peut-être à écrire des paroles françaises pour des chansons rockabilly?
Peut-être que ça, c'est une bonne idée. Euh, oui, ça, c'est une bonne idée parce que j'adore Edith Piaf. J'adore les musiciens français. Bien sûr, Serge Gainsbourg. C'est une bonne idée, oui. Je vais commencer à écrire une chanson en français maintenant. C'est bon.
Well, mesdames et messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, this is Carolyn Cotto that you're listening to and seeing. I hope that you'll support her. Is there a way for us to get your merchandise? I'm assuming that you have a website that we can actually do direct buys.
Yes, please go to www.carolinecotto.com and press my shop. And I have T-shirts and notebooks and everything, stickers,
Do you
coffee
have
mugs,
vinyl?
vinyl. Vinyl is coming next year, definitely. But you have the CD. You can purchase the CD.
Yeah, that and pretty much streaming, but buy the CD, folks. It's worth the support.
Yes. Yes.
Buy the merch. It's worth the support. So, thank you so much, Carolyn. Or is it Caroline? Caroline?
Oui, je t'en prie. Oui, Caroline.
C'est Caroline Cotto, mesdames et messieurs. Caroline, merci beaucoup pour avoir pris mon invitation pour être sur cette entrevue. Puis on se parlera la prochaine fois que vous avez un nouvel album, puis on fera sûr et certain de pouvoir en discuter plus.
Merci beaucoup.